Okay.
So Shawn, like, can you just, provide like this brief overview of like your role and responsibilities at Tabular during your period there?
Sure. I was senior developer advocate, and we had kind of a dual motion, which was Apache Iceberg and then our product. And I had used Storylane when it was just first out. I think it was beta at Upsolver a year or so prior, and I really liked it. And there had been a lot of advances to it in that time. And so I brought that to the table. I said, "Here, let me show you something. I think this would be really good because I like to do them with, kind of a companion video." And so part of my thing was to create content in multiple mediums across multiple platforms. So hit as many, social platforms as possible, with video, interactive demos, blogs, and really just inform people in a way that suited them for the way they learned and wherever it is that they live. Do they get their information from Substack? Do they get it from LinkedIn? Do they get it from X or what have you? So that was kind of the idea there. Just get awareness of our product and the open source project out there as widely as possible, and help with the engagement in Slack and such.
Got it. No, that's pretty cool. And like, what I'm super curious, like, how did you come up with that? What made you, like, have you read about it somewhere? How did you come across Storylane? What made you think that like interactive demos will kind of help you with that?
Well, again, going back to Upsolver, it was interesting. One of the folks there, May, she had found it. I think what it was is one of their investors was one of our investors, and so they wanted us to look at it as that, as that works within the investor community. And so May had tried it, and she had done one thing, but that really wasn't her gig. And I was just hired, and I was working on some blogs, and they asked me to take a look at it. And there's a thought process that you have to really rethink how you're doing things. Once you get into that groove, it's very natural, but it's a very different way of approaching it. And Storylane isn't the only product that does it. And I'd looked at some others, but I really liked Storylane. And so, I talked to some of the salespeople, I talked to some of the partnership people, and I said, what are some of the things that would be helpful for you? And in the case of Upsolver, a lot of this partnership stuff, it's us with this and us with that, and showing those things working together. So I started doing that at Upsolver, and I really liked how it worked. And that's when I hit on the notion, hey, I can do short videos of these. So I use everything from the Storylane demo as the visuals in the video, and then I just voice over it because I've already got that succinct walkthrough that I want. Some people like video, some people like, to click on things. So I found that worked really well. So then when I was at Tabular, and I tried to bring it in another company, but it was a little wonky there. So I brought it in at Tabular. I was given pretty free reign, and exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to show succinct bits of education. How do I do this thing? Not how do I do all the things. And now I have a library of doing each of these individual things. And I had been working towards like a mega walkthrough where I had the entire product, with the menu in the front end, because that was a feature they added to Storylane. And I just hadn't gotten to it yet, but that was on my list of things that I still wanted to do. Because I think getting that all clumped together in one place also helps from the user experience, because you can lay it out sort of in a sequential order of these are the things that you should learn. And then you look at it, it's almost like a menu of what's available. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I already looked at all those things. I want to know about security. I didn't look that before. And now you can dive directly into it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like that, having like and we call it like a demo center. We see that that's becoming more and more popular among
Yeah.
customers, that they have like multiple demos in one place. And then, I mean, it depends also if they're, kind of enterprises, if, they have quite high value deals, or they are like, let's say, product led. In those cases, they can also gate it or ungate it. So we've seen, quite a few examples actually leveraging that these days. And
Oh,
Shawn,
nice.
and one question, so you mentioned like you managed multiple channels, creating content for multiple channels. And what we notice is that many companies, like I'm doing a lot of research calls, and many people did in the past just videos, and now when they also search for like interactive demos, they think, okay, interactivity beats kind of passivity, but still what you mentioned, like, some people prefer one or the another.
Mm.
What I noticed so far, like one of the biggest advantages why they pick interactive demos, on one side, like the ease of creation, it's much simpler to just create an interactive demo versus to record a video, then match it audio and everything. And then also if something updates in the product, you need to redo it. It's not that you just kind of replace the screen. So I'm wondering, for you, what were kind of the challenges, pain points that you encountered during this period, so that you kind of, the prompt in this search for Storylane?
Well, you make a good point about when the product changes. So, for example, at Tabular, when we launched, we knew we were going to change the UI, but I needed to have product. So, I mean, I'm getting paid to do these things, right? So, I just bit the bullet. And with the demos, it's fairly easy, because I can reuse my verbiage. It's just different screenshots, or I could even swap out the screenshot behind the verbiage if the flow is still the same, or reasonably similar, that it's, but sometimes that's more trouble than it's worth. It's easier just to record a new one. The videos, of course, are a challenge because you can't update a video and then you lose that view count and everything else. So there's a best practice for it, but there's not a good method for it. But the demos are certainly easy. And, I had used this sort of as a proof. Like, say you have a customer that's having a hard time and you're doing it. It's like, it's working for me. Well, it's not working for me. Oftentimes people grab Loom and they'll walk through it real quick, but the resolution could be low, or, it's going too fast, or it's hard for them to tell exactly what you did. So if you just actually record your walkthrough in Storylane, which is really the same steps, right? You just turn on record and then you go through the process, and then you can just send them the link, and now they can sit there and stop and they can look at it and go back, and it's really easy. It's different than pausing the video and whatnot. So and I found that a challenge to be with Loom in general. Is just like the video resolution was kind of low. So yeah, I found Storylane to be good for that kind of a concept.
And did you have any chance to kind of compare the engagement? What do you think about that? Like, which one performed better eventually? Interactive demos or videos in your case?
It depends on this comes down to awareness. So, and this might be something Storylane wants to look at. I mean, you can do this yourself, but consider somebody can subscribe to your YouTube channel. So they're notified when a new video comes out. You can set up a playlist so it goes from one to the other. The only way to make people aware of a Storylane is to send it to them, or they have to run across it because you put them all on your website. So it's a little different. It can be harder. Now at Upsolver, I had ridiculously high engagement on the on Storylane, like crazy high. It wasn't as high as videos at Tabular, but we also hadn't put it on a web page. We only sent out specific engagement. It would be in a newsletter or a post. So I wasn't surprised about that, or sales would send it to somebody specifically. So really, your engagement can be significantly higher depending on how you make it available.
Yeah, totally. What, like my question went in the direction as well, more about, let's say if you have a video, if you have like a 2 minutes video on your website, and then if you have an interactive demo on the website, what happens usually is, like, these days, if you see how short our attention spans are, like people tend to either skim it or they just start watching it, but like no one keeps the attention, for like 2 minutes on the video. Like, and we talk about like 2 minutes. There are also videos that last much longer. And I think like once we discussed this, you mentioned like with the interactive demos, what you did, if I can recall, like you placed the guides on different areas on the screen just so that people can kind of physically engage and move around at all times.
Yeah. So when somebody gets to 100% completion, they're not just in one place clicking through, because they have to move around. They have to visually engage to get to the end. And to your point, yeah, even at 2-minute videos, people are dropping out at a minute 30. And I'm very big on short content. So I try to keep everything short. So to that extent, I saw more people going to the end of a story lane than I did seeing them make it to the end of a video.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
the completeness of engagement was higher with the interactive demos than the videos. Because yeah, you just kind of tune out something, you get something pops up. Oh, I want to watch that now. Who's
Mhm.
Taylor Swift dating now? So do you know? Because I don't.
Yeah. Oh man.
um, yeah, so
And
I find the completeness of engagement to be higher with interactive demos than with videos.
got it, got it, got it. Yeah, that was a good one. All right, and when it comes to now, when when you find out like about Storylane, when you start introducing it to the team at Tabler, how was it like? How was the experience? Did any, how did people react?
They're like, "Oh, that's cool." It was all engineers, so it's sales, me, and everybody else is an engineer. So the reaction was positive, and then it got people thinking like, "Oh, we could put that in our documentation." I'm like, "Yes." It's a great thing to put in the documentation. So it got people thinking a little bit around how they could leverage that sort of a concept. And then, we didn't have to build that kind of functionality ourselves. You could
Hmm.
literally put it into the product if you wanted to walk people through different segments. And maybe they've done something like that since I've been gone. But yeah, it was definitely positive. Nobody went, "That's stupid. Why would you do that?" It was all, "Oh, that's cool. I hadn't thought about doing it like that."
Yeah, totally. The one thing I see, like when we talk, I see that people like once they publish it, the first thing they do is
Mhm.
they share it, like usually in Slack with peers.
Yeah.
And then it's not just that people that's why I think it's a great thing to be kind of wider spread within the organization, just because when people say it, they just don't give feedback. Oh, it's great, I like it, but rather
Mhm.
they start thinking, oh, how can I implement this, how it can help me, like whether I'm in marketing, in sales, in product, customer success, whatever. Like it really,
Yeah.
it gets them think about it, how else they can use it.
Yeah, sales guys liked that kind of stuff that they can include, in a call or an email. You have like an opening email. It's like, here, take a look at this. This is all that's involved with getting started with our product.
Totally, totally. And when it comes to you mentioned that we discussed about what happens when the product changes, when you need to update, let's say, in demo just slides. I'm wondering, were there any other changes, any kind of, let's say, positive outcomes that you noticed that related to Storylane? Like, did anything specifically improve, like, I don't know, productivity or anything on your side?
Do you mean features within the product or the way it helped with our
Basically,
product changes?
let's talk about like you and your work. So let's say, did it somehow, when you adopted Storylane, how did it impact your daily work and collaboration in the team?
I mean, the way that I would approach it really, because I was in the product development meetings and things like that. So when I would see a new feature that was available, I would schedule time with the primary developer to make sure that I understood it correctly. And
Hmm.
I would just record a conversation here, walk me through it, and let me see. And then I would take that and I would create a story lane of it, and I would share it with the engineer, make sure I didn't have anything wrong. Because with the new features, it's like, am I missing something? Did I explain this correctly? You want to make sure that it's right. And then when that was right, I'd make that available and I would then make a video of it at the same time.
I see, I see. And when you implement Storylane, can you, now we will not, specify the numbers. Can you share any positive outcomes? You were featured like the Storylane of the week. So I'm just wondering now, can you share any positive kind of achievements that you can attribute to the integration, of Storylane and Tableau?
Well, I found it answered questions and sort of reduced some support overhead because you could, how do I do X? Or here, let me show you this. This allows you to do Y. And now I don't have to explain anything else. I can just give that to you. And now you're informed enough that if it doesn't quite answer every question, you're further down the road and I don't have to explain as much. You've got all the basics. So, man, my brain went off on a tangent there. Where were we going? I was driving and it took a wrong off ramp.
You got it. And I mean, what I noticed in your case, right? It was kind of a bit specific.
Oh, conversion, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to say, hey, I put out this Storylane and it turned into a sale. What I did see is that it empowered sales and it allowed us to talk about things. So, when you're working LinkedIn, for example, or X, you need to have something to say that's productive. And so you can put that out and then you can put out another one and you can alternate between the story and the video. And then people would engage with those again in different ways, depending on what they wanted. And it just gives you another asset to talk about. And you can cycle back through it later. It's like, okay, we talked about that 3 months ago. We can bring that back around. It's a lot more people know who we are. We can bring this forward. So, direct numbers, it was good, best I could tell between like say signups and sending out notification of this being there, you would see spikes. I can't really speak to the numbers exactly, but looking at the analytics, I would see a correlation between sending that out and people signing up, for example. I would have loved to have had a unified analytics system for all the things that I was engaging with so I could really directly correlate how much, was triggering on what platforms, but that doesn't exist anymore yet.
Got it. And when you I really love what you mentioned. So you not only can use interactive demos, but then on the other side, you also use interactive demos with audio on top, right? And then you created videos out of that as well. So for me, that's one really interesting use case. Can you elaborate on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit tricky to do, but like the way that I do it is, so I'll have a Storylane and I kind of write a script based on what the flow is. I'll record the audio, clean that up, and then play it back while I walk through the story and synchronize the video with the audio. And I like that because then it's a consistent message. You see the same thing across, assets. So if you change between them, you don't feel it's like, oh, did I miss something? I just like the consistency so that it looks the same, it flows the same, the prompts are the same. So you won't, I don't know, you don't feel out of sorts, like again, like you missed something, or do I need to consume both of these things because it looks like they're different? No, you consume the one that's comfortable for you, and maybe it's both of them.
Got it. And since you were like Storylane of the week, I'm wondering, what about, do you have, I mean, we talked about the advice, right? You shared already, but I'm wondering what advice would you give to, other teams, organizations, considering Storylane, like considering, implementing interactive demos in general as a potential solution?
Well, something that I learned, when I was first doing it, because you're not sure how much should I prompt, and I was way over prompting and I was ending up with stories that had, 40 steps to them. And, that was a learning process. And you guys made some changes to the product, but at the time you couldn't just jump to a screen. So we wanted to put what step you were on and give you the ability to go back. So at least you knew where you're at in the process. So I learned, okay, people, if it's sort of never ending, there's this study where they put a rat in a glass of water and it drowned after a little bit. But once you train the rat that it could have hope and you take it out, it would swim for much, much longer. So if you show somebody, okay, you've got 15 steps. Oh, okay. But if you don't say how many, they don't know how much is left. And that can be visually disorienting. So giving those cues for what you're in for and trimming it down as much as possible. These are smart people. They know to click on OK or whatever. You don't need to point out the obvious steps. You need to when you start, you need to establish where you're at and what you're going to do. Where am I in the product? You don't need to walk the whole way there in steps. Just say where you're at in the product, what you're going to do, and then jump into it and keep the steps to a minimum. You don't have to explain everything, but if you're going to change between two things, and this would kind of be a cool feature, but oftentimes, especially in this space, say we're working with AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, so we're doing things in our product, or if we're working with another product, we do things in ours and we do things over here, then back. So you got a series of back and forth. And right now, at least last time I used it, I had to stop recording here, then start recording in the pinned here, then stop and start and stop and start. And that's a little awkward, but you can do it. And when I first went to do it, I was thinking, oh, I can only record in one place. And, I wasn't thinking I could start and stop in a pinned. So it might sound simple, but if you don't think about it, you're like, well, I can't do that because it's in two different products. I can only record one product at a time. And that's true, but you can append from the other one. And like I say, there might be some changes. I saw some things happening last time I used it a couple months ago.
Yeah, that's something we're working on, allowing that possibility, exactly. But yeah, you made it. So regarding this, what you mentioned, like reducing the number of steps, I mean, I saw demos having 50, 70, 80 steps, right?
Yikes.
That's really that's wow. That's like a 10-minute, or 10-minute long video. So
Yeah.
what we noticed, depending, like we just released playbooks, right? And in playbooks, we are helping basically all demo creators, depending on the buyer stage they are at, and depending on the purpose they want to use interactive demos for, like how they should structure demos step by step, right? And what we noticed, if you want to use it like on the website, usually the best is to have like between 10 to 12 steps. Many people, if you love your product, especially like small startups, if you're the founder, you want to show everything, right? And then it's really hard to just, kick out something. But, having like less is more. That's what we notice. That's what we notice with, with people who create demos based on their engagement. If you really need to have more steps, so if you want to dive deeper, fine. Then you can create like multiple flows. I don't know, have you experienced that? But you can have like within one demo, you can have a tour and then show, okay, you want to dive deeper into feature A, go to that tour, but like the general overview should have no more than like 10 12 steps.
Yeah, I was keeping it, well, I have a title screen, that introduces what we're going to do. And then I have an outro screen with a call to action. So that uses up two. But in general, I tried to keep it around 15 with those two. So that it sounds like we ended up at about the same place. Because of the nature of what I was doing, I didn't do flows. I was going to do flows, for the whole product thing, to try to do it like that. But I didn't do, it was still in such a state of flux, I couldn't put it together because I'd be changing it every other day. So I figured, so I kept everything very succinct. So I didn't really need to do a flow because I was just really covering one topic, very tight. And I'm sure I would run into the situation where I would need to do that. But yeah, shorter is better. If you got an educational content, then yeah, you can go like that, go long. But.
Exactly. And what you mentioned, like, adding those kind of how many steps left, those hints, and I just have people click around, like it's never ending. That's I mean, that all right. That all kind of really helps with the conversion, with people completing the demo. Yeah. Oh, cool. And when it comes to the content creation, like how did you create stuff? Did you focus on, what kind of terms did you use? Did you collaborate with someone to create a content for each step, for each step when guiding people? Or did you talk more about like the benefits they will get? How did you come up with the content?
So it's really about how to do a particular thing. So say Iceberg or Tabular, it's managed Iceberg, which is a table format. So say, for example, what's a good one? Oh, okay. I want to use Spark with Iceberg using a tabular credential. All right. So we're going to show you the fact that there's this Spark wizard, and then here's our credential. Then we're going to switch to a terminal window, That was a challenge getting into the flow. I had to
Mhm.
screenshot it and then import it, and anyway, it worked. But again, that's overcoming a challenge. If you didn't think it through, you wouldn't realize, oh, I can grab whatever I need to and stuff it in here. It just might be a little bit more roundabout than click. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that was take that, show what happens in Spark, in a terminal window, then we come back to tabular and we show the results. Like we've inserted data, for example, into this table that we just created, and those things exist. So that was the kind of thing that I was doing. And like I said, whenever there was a new feature, like, oh, now we're working with a Google Cloud platform. Okay, let me do something around how that credential works. Oh, it works with EMR. Let me do something around that. Or, oh, we have a file loader now. Let me describe that. So I wanted to stay on top of the features because they were new features that allowed sales, to show it. It allowed us to have assets when we went to go talk about it. Oh, we just added this new feature. Here, look at our interactive demo and we'll show you how it works.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And when it comes to now, let's you moved on, right, from tabular. I'm just wondering your future endeavors. Do you see? I mean, you already did it, right? So you already brought Storylane from one company to another, tried to do it with the third one. I'm wondering,
Yeah,
will this trend change? Like, do you see Storylane still kind of playing a role? That's in this, in the context of this industry in
yeah.
general. How do you see?
I mean, every company I've been talking to, I bring it up because I think it's a really powerful tool, and it allows you to add an extra dimension that very few people in this particular space are taking advantage of. Everybody is still overly obsessed with the extremely long technical blogs that don't actually turn into a sale, that very few people are reading all 3,000 words, and there's people who are, they're valuable assets. But if you're
Mm,
trying to get attention, if you're trying to bait a hook, to get people in so that they look at it and they understand what you're doing. So say somebody is using Snowflake and they don't know that your product exists. So now you've put out this asset that shows your product working with Snowflake. You put it
mm,
out there, you're tagging Snowflake, and now the Snowflake people look and go, oh, cool. Now I see how those work together,
mm.
and I can kind of do that in my own time. Video is a little less in your own time. You hit play, you get distracted. With the Storyline, you can be a few steps in, oh, my meeting starts, and it
Mm.
still sits there at that step, and then you can pick it back up.
And it's about that, like I really strongly believe it will stay. That's why I said, like, for me 2024 will be, I mean, we see many competitors, showing up almost every day. So really
Yeah,
think this space would be jam. I mean, many companies don't leverage it yet. That's why. And but
yeah,
if you also look at it, right, having your visitors, whoever, actually engage with a product, and then if you actually do, that's why this whole, let's say, HTML editor plays a big role. When
yeah,
you actually duplicate your product, when you let them pick their own adventure before signing up, if they can actually click around your product, they can
yeah,
get familiar with it. Tomorrow when they have a maybe sales call with you, that usually happens, right? If the company is kind of sales led, if the product is gated, when they talk to salespeople, they already have the context about the app, so it's much faster. I mean, the whole onboarding process is much faster. The learning curve is super high.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's why, yeah, it's also I believe it will, yeah, play a significant
Well,
role.
here's a gap where I think it
Got it.
fits in really nicely. You go to a lot of sites and you want to check out the product, and it says, "Oh, contact us for a demo." That a lot of people don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want to look at it real quick. You can use that so you can use an interactive demo without essentially exposing your product, where you have to deal with, random signups. Like there's infrastructure issues. It's not a matter of hiding it. It's a matter of the infrastructure that's required to
Mhm.
allow, these kinds of signups to try it out. Well, now you can put something up there and people can click around and now they see what it looks like, they see what the flow is, and I see it as a great in between step,
Mhm.
between you know, the 90-second, teaser trailer of, what it is. But that doesn't really show the product. It's like, do you want to be able to, do whatever? And it's just this kind of, marketing fluff. So I really think it fills a gap there for, even breaking it down, see how our product does, depending on your product, of course, how it does X, how it does Y, how it does Z. And you put these different, interactive demos up there. And now you don't have to deal with any authentication or data problems or anything else. That allows them to try your product easily and help with the sales process. And like you say, now they've got some familiarity with it, once they do get into it.
Yeah, totally. And what you mentioned was so fun. Like, when you go to what happened to me last week, when you go on a website and, I was interested 1 week ago. I was interested in the product. I heard about it, went to the website. The only way to learn more about a product is to actually schedule a demo. You go through the website, you go through the text and stuff, but that's not enough. So you go and you actually, I requested a demo from 2 vendors, waited over 50 hours to get a response. Eventually, I got a response, and then I had to book a demo, but the demo was available only after 24 hours because we're in different time zone. So like, you really make me wait for that long, that period. And, eventually, like, you either lose interest or you go for someone else, or, you're really frustrated if you need them, you do a call. But that's like a huge area that, companies still don't improve on. So that's,
Yeah, and I feel bad about taking their time. It's like, there's a good chance I'm not going to buy this right now. I want to be aware of it because it might be something that I want to use, and I like to be aware of technology, that I might use. Like, I'm aware of Storylane. So now when I go into a place, I bring it with me because it's in my toolbox. But if I can't try it, it's crazy, spending days, and then you end up with a used car salesman, trying to hard sell you.
Just thinking like companies doing sales outreach, right? Those are sales that doing a lot of sales outreach. So they do the sales outreach. They send emails. Maybe some of those emails convert, but I bet no one will just book a call with a salesperson without checking out the website. So if I go and check out the website, if the website doesn't tell me anything, it's so much better if you just give me better sense of your product when I'm on your website. That way, like, even if I'm not in that warm stage at this point, if I'm still cold, it might come back to me, in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever, that, I have this solution and it might help me.
Agreed. But I've enjoyed explaining my journey to you. I appreciate being with you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Shawn. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks. You too.